speed and no weapons one. There's no way he's going to be engaging those Hydras. Meanwhile, Bisu now adding in some gateways, so he's going to go for just a ground army. Going to have some High Templar alongside on the ground. Meanwhile, now Modesty pressuring with some Hydras. Just has to be very careful not to overstep himself. Bisu now has speed. Weapons one should be kicking in momentarily as well, providing he put his upgrades up at the runtime at the correct time. Bisu, I think, also actually put down the cannon there. Open the cannon. Let's see, a lot of Hydras there surrounding the building. Zealots are going to come in there. Weapons one just hitting right now. He's going to try to go for this deck. He has a fairly large number of Zealots here. I don't see any sunken colonies. Usually when you see this kind of build, you see a sunken colony right behind the den. That would be a big help right now. Bisu does lose a lot of the Zealots, but still managed to get a decent number of Hydras in the mix. Bisu still, I feel, doing a good job just with that pressure. He lost a little bit more than he wanted to. Probably would have wanted to pull back a little bit earlier, but he should have some High Templars with Storm out in the field as well. And Modesty honestly not adding in as many static defenses as I thought he should have. I think actually when you're going to go for the strategy, you should have a sunken colony at your natural and your third. Basically, the two bases that are open to protoss attack. Meanwhile, Bisu going to go on with a Corsair, going to try to find an open target for himself to pick off. Also, just mostly to get a scout. That's the most important thing he's going to do. Make sure there's not going to be any funky switches or anything weird. Make sure that Hive Tech's not forthcoming. Also, I'm going to actually put out a DT out there. They're mostly just to try to sneak in a force somewhere. Has a Corsair and they're trying to pick up the Overlord, but the Overlords have speed at this point, so I don't think this DT is going to be too successful unless he somehow manages to, with some miracle work, get Overlords away from their locations. But you never know. There are mistakes can be made. Just wondering whether the natural is vulnerable or not. Bisu probably is actually checking the position all around. Make sure they can find a vulnerable point. And I think he's actually also readying himself to possibly pick up a third. Has a DT out there in the middle, waiting for an opportunity to strike. And at this point, I feel really no player is behind. Bisu, meanwhile, building up a decent army, has a couple of Dragoons stuck up. Is going to lose his DT without doing any sort of damage. Should actually lose that one more shot on that. Might actually just barely manage to escape with it. But no, they're still shooting at it, so most likely going to die. Okay, never mind. Thinking he was going to die, but he didn't. Bunch of lurkers out in the field by Modesty. And now what he has to do is really has to do some damage with that. Has to make sure that he doesn't get overrun, because Bisu is putting up his third. And he's going to be hitting up his macro pretty heavily. Also has a bunch of gateways out. Has a bunch of High Templars. Modesty will basically going to go for Bisu's natural expo. Going to plant down a bunch of lurkers and a bunch of Hydra alongside. There's going to be a nice storm for Bisu, though, catching a lot of those Hydralisks. He has another High Templar there as well for a second storm. I'm not quite sure if he has observers, though, but those cannons are spotting the frontal lurkers. The lurker's not really doing the amount of damage you would have wanted to. Lost an observer there, so he did have an observer earlier on. Second storm going to come off, hit a lurker, and pick it off alongside, doing some decent damage to those Hydras. Just now adding in... Okay, that wasn't observer. I thought it was observer in the air. That might have actually been something else. But yeah, just now adding in an observatory, so he's going to be a little off if his observers comes out. No, but with that storming, still going to be in a pretty disposition. Probably going to lose those forward buildings. But at the moment, he's mostly focused on defending at 6 o'clock. And he could actually eventually pull those forces out and go for a pincer attack, kind of close Modesty in here. But Modesty has to get this done with his attack. He's doing a lot of damage. Nice, beautiful storm there by Bisu, catching a lot of those Hydras. Hydras coming in and penetrating very closely, but Modesty losing all of his forces, just running and gunning them right in the face of fire. Some Archons morphing in as well, and Bisu probably going to have an attack force. Does an observer out, have an observer out there as well now. So as Dragoons and Zealots coming in from the back, they're going to reinforce. Should be able to clean up these Hydras and Zerg with no problem whatsoever. A lot of those Overlords in the air, and they're just flying around, taking some fire. A couple of them being picked off. And Modesty knows that he did not manage to accomplish what he wanted to with that attack. Went very, very aggressively for it. I'm not really quite sure if it actually helped him. And meanwhile, not going to go for 6 o'clock. Only defended by 2 cannons there, so if he might actually accomplish a little bit here. But he's actually going to be pincered from behind, and he can't really run towards the right, because if he runs to the right, he's just going to be running in the way of more forces. So he's now completely hunkered in. He's at the very least going to try to pick up some probes and some units before these Hydras dies. But Modesty at this point has lost his entire ground army, and Bisu has a bunch of Zealots on the field alongside a bunch of Dragoons. Probably has a few High Templar to support as well. An engagement at this point, I feel, happens will be horrible for Modesty. The only chance I feel he has is if he manages to pick off some observers and keep a lot of lurkers on the ground. But I don't really see that many lurkers. Only one lurker with some Hydras on top of it. And he has to pick up that observer. He doesn't have any chance whatsoever. He has a couple of Lurkers right now on the ground. Observers still just backing off, staying alive. Hydra's coming in close a little bit, possibly trying to pick that up, but don't even see any overlords to support. Bisu at the moment picking, kind of forcing himself back a little bit, but meanwhile has a DT could possibly sneak out towards a new base that Modesty being put up the upper left-hand position. Modesty is still engaging near the middle, has several Lurkers on the ground alongside a few Hydras to support, but I just don't think he'll be able to hold this with those observers in the air. And Modesty not picking them off. I don't really think he's going to be able to accomplish much at all. Some High Templars coming as well to start storming those Lurkers as soon as they bury themselves in the close comp. Meanwhile, has a DT at their left hand harassing the hatchery is going to come up, most likely going to force to cancel. Unless Modesty doesn't cancel, kind of loses himself. Does have an overlord at that location, so really has to put in some forces to try to defend that. Bisu is still in a very good position at this moment. Has an army out in the field, not much in the way of Zealots anymore. Had to sacrifice quite a few of them, but he does have a lot of Dragoons. Dragoons still decently effective against Hydras. So, okay, Modesty's base the upper left and has been put up. There is a Hydras coming in to pick off this TT. TT has very little health, so it is... No! Oh, God, that was horrible. Picks off the Hydra. A little bit of micro would have saved Modesty, but it just doesn't have any time. But now Bisu's knocking on his front door, across this bridge. A couple of storms picking off most of the rest of those Hydras. And a bunch of Dragoons following this off. I think a few Zealots at the back as well. But I just don't think there's any opportunity here for Modesty to get back into this game. Still more storms, a bunch of Dragoons, a few Zealots there at the back that not even running towards the front. A few Zerg is the only thing that at this moment to defend them. Instantly gets stormed. But Bisu just far too big an advantage. No real economic damage done to anybody during this game, but just by winning these battles and by forcing Modesty into a bad position twice, he managed to win this game. Modesty at this point should be able to, should most likely GG any second now because he naturally, there we go, there's the GG. We had a shuttle coming in as well, might have been for a drop. But Bisu with a decisive victory there over Modesty. Modesty, you know, basically just went for the standard game, but simply with his initial force did not accomplish anything at the front. He had managed to, if he had managed to break that, he might have been in business. Probably would have lost it anyway because Bisu had those forces at the back. But losing his forces and not accomplishing anything, just basically lost him the game there. So GG guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and I'm bringing you the rest of the group pretty soon.